Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Talk Podcast Stumble In. I am excited to bring back Stumble In, this being the actual second episode of Stumble In, hence the seventh episode altogether with my Talk Podcast. I am Denny Cool, and for those of you that may watch later, not watch at all, or are watching now and not in the chats, I welcome you. As I state all the time during my Talk Podcast, this podcast is not for me to tell you how to think or what to think or how to feel. It's meaningful, fun conversation, open discussion. And I put it out there for you, the listener, to make up your own mind, to kind of decide for yourself what you think is fact and base your opinion off of the information that I share with you. And of course, I share my opinion. So it's not the Talk Podcast where it's Denny says this is so or this is fact. If you read the description, it talks about me sharing my thoughts and opinions and having fun and meaningful conversation. And that's what I like to do. I like to hear other people's inputs, get your thoughts and your opinions on subjects that I discuss. And some subjects may be a little, either out there, maybe don't seem interesting to you. That's okay. You might still learn something. Believe it or not, unlike our Friday night shows, this is where I have the opportunity to show everybody that there's more than just good looks, beautiful voice, and talent behind the mic. There is me. Of course, that sums it up. But with that being said, I just like to entertain, and I love to talk with people. I love getting their input, because just when you think you know almost everything there is to know about something, lo and behold, you find out something new. Or somebody presents an idea to you that may seem a little odd, or it may seem a little different than what you may have been brought up with, or what you were taught all your life. And tonight, that doesn't stem far from what I just said. Many, I would have to say a lot of people, myself included, we grew up with the impression of, different beliefs. Some come from different cultures, different backgrounds, whether that be religious. Maybe you lived in a land where they practiced certain beliefs, right? Their culture was far different from, say, the Western civilization or what have you. That's okay. Or maybe you grew up with a family that was very strict on certain religious beliefs. And that's okay too. Again, I'm not here to change your mind or persuade you. I'm here to share my opinions, my beliefs, and you can take what you want from it, and you can expand on it or not. That's up to you. But again, at the end of the day, it's all about sharing thoughts and opinions. And I think that without open discussion, without talking about things or sharing ideas and opinions, I think it becomes a very closed off world, which many of us know it's very difficult to talk to people now. There's a lot of podcasts out there that are just repetitive about the same things going on. It could be politics, it could be whatever it is, right? But I find it, for me, and I've searched, believe me, I've searched. There are a few good ones, right, that aren't embedded in that type of rhetoric, but their topics really aren't for me. I love cooking, I love the healthy things, I love all that fun stuff, but it's not something that I would engage in as entertaining for me. So I try to, span or make it a little bit of each, right? Kind of take a little bit of topics here and there and mix them up. And then I put my own spin on it. But before I do all of that, though, I make sure that I'm well versed in what I'm talking about, or at least to the best that I can. Because I find that a lot of talk podcasts out there, they pretty much spin what their belief is, and their belief is only. And they don't go off of information that they've researched or other people's thoughts. It's either their opinion and that's it. And if you disagree with their opinion, then they pretty much shut you off. And I've been on podcasts where I've chatted and they were saying things that I literally could prove they were wrong. Next thing you know, I was blocked. I wasn't able to chat, but that's okay. So with this podcast, I don't do that. I may disagree with somebody's viewpoints. I may disagree with somebody's lifestyle or what they do. That's fine. And they may disagree with mine, so on and so forth. But that's the very fundamental thing about being able to talk and have open discussions and have honest disagreements, because in my opinion, that's how you learn. That's how you adapt. That's how you grow. And you can't always know everything. I don't care who you are, how smart you are, how knowledgeable you are, successful, whatever defines your meaning of success. For me, it's all about being able to share and respect others' opinions and respect others' beliefs. Again, you don't have to agree with their beliefs. You don't have to agree with their opinions, but respect it. Because at some point, you may have had or been in line with their thoughts at one point or the other, but you just forgot, right? And sometimes it takes a little bit for us to kind of remember, I may not have thought exactly how they do, but I was close. And maybe you changed. Maybe you realigned your thinking, right? But just remember, when someone says, this is my truth to something, it doesn't mean it's the truth. It's their truth, such as you have a truth that is dear to you that you believe to be true. It doesn't make it a fact or doesn't make it the truth. I always give the analogy where there's a car accident and 5 people witness it, and everybody's giving a statement and saying, this is what happened. This is the truth. This is how it went down. But there is one truth. That one truth, which is the only truth, is that camera. And that one truth caught everything exactly how it happened. Now, as meaningful and as well-intended as those 5 are that gave their statements, does it mean they're wrong? No. They're giving their truth to what they believe happened, right? So it's kind of the same thing in life, I think, that we give our opinions to what we believe is truth, and we share that. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong for failing or sharing what they believe their truth to be. So I always find that to be a little bit aggravating when somebody is just so, as a matter of fact, this is how it is. Well, maybe to you, but unless you can show me the actual truth of it, then, we can have a better conversation. If you shut me off because you don't want to hear what my truth is, then there's really kind of no conversation to be had, because what you're doing is you're having a dead argument, right? And then it turns heated and just goes sideways. But with that being said, I have been for many, many, many years. Before I even get into that, when I was younger, I used to always pretend that I used to have superpowers. Many of you may have when you were younger, right? You would think like you're some superhero with these great powers and what have you. And I was one of those kids, I would think that I could fly. I remember one time I had a sheet It was either sheet or roll, towel, whatever it was. I put it around my neck and I jumped off my porch. Now, for me, I was a little guy, so it was pretty high, and I believed I could fly. I didn't fly too high. I went up and went right back down again. Well, moral of that story is, for me, I believed I could do it. And it took that fall to make me realize that I couldn't. So I was confused as to, if I'm seeing this and other people are doing it on TV, why can't I do it? Well, what was it that I was witnessing? It was deception. It was meant to have you believe in something that really wasn't practical. It was it didn't exist, but in your mind you thought it did. And so after a certain age, you kind of grew out of that stage, right? And then you realized how foolish you were as a kid, but it was harmless because you believed in something that you were shown. And of course, you're impressionable at that age. But even as adults, we are still impressionable. We see things, we hear things now with social media and everything. It's right there. So, what do you, or how do you decipher what to believe, right? Because a lot of it is deception. And so, the more you watch, the more you listen, and if you don't take the time to go elsewhere and really research. I'm not talking about searching. I talked about that. There's a difference between searching and then researching. Anybody can go on the internet and search, but you have to research. And so when you research and you can come up with different ways of what it is you're intrigued about, or you find different opinions based off things that you may have interest in. I always say, research it. Don't fall blindly to just one thing. And there's nothing wrong. It doesn't mean that you're doubting whatever it is that you have faith in or that you're putting belief in. It's just you want to be extra cautious with a lot of different things. And so, like kids, when we believed we could fly and we were superheroes, we were deceived, but not in a bad way for that, right? It's just what we seen, what we were watching, it made an impression on us. And so that became our reality. We thought we could actually fly. But until you jumped, you realized, I can't fly. It's, for whatever reason, you can't. So even as adults, that happens to us. Sometimes we think we can fly because we too, again, are impressionable. And I think today there's so much going on. There's so much confusion. And I think a lot of people are looking for some type of an answer. That could be an answer to peace. It could be an answer to, is there a God? Is there aliens? Whatever it is. I'm just throwing some things out there, but people look for things because what happens is fear and uncertainty creates anxiety. And so when that happens, you try to look for a solution because whatever it is you're going through or you're suffering from, or whether it's health or finances, whatever it is, right? It creates a fear. And so that fear inside you creates the uncertainty. Uncertainty creates anxiety, and so on and so forth. And so we go searching until we can find something that makes sense. And 9 out of 10, we don't. Or you find something that makes you feel better, or that you find can bring you some sort of temporary relief. And I'm going to give you an example of one of those things. It's pretty much right on line with the actual topic tonight. So when I was growing up, before I learned about different things, about the Bible, about religious beliefs, and before I really started studying and learning, I always believed that, when you died, you either go to heaven, you go to hell, or purgatory, or you'd float around, or you become this spirit, or reincarnate, whatever it was. I was confused. I didn't know what to believe, and so that happens to many people. And then what they want to do is, nobody that I'm aware of wants to die. Nobody wants to lose anybody in death. And that could be from a pet, a family member, whatever it is, friend, You want to hold on to that. We are designed with the ability to live forever. We're not designed to say, okay, we're born, then we die. If you were, then death wouldn't be a big thing. Death is an enemy. And so we fear it. We do everything we can to try to avoid it. And so with that, a lot of people look into, well, this one passed away. And you want to believe, because you don't want to let that go, that they are or he or she is no longer with you, right? So you put that belief system in. And now it's so easy, because you just go on the internet and this stuff is everywhere. And you see these TV shows that have made millions and millions of dollars off promoting the fact that when somebody dies, they can communicate with you. And for years, they've had TV shows that have been promoting this. And the number one thing that I've always learned about these types of shows is, number one, it's for entertainment. Number two, and it might right up there with number one, I don't know, is they're always trying to look for an answer. They want to know what happens after death, right? So not only is it for entertainment, because they're not going to do it for free. Some of these guys have made a multi-millionaires off this stuff. But my point is that they're always searching for the answer to life after death. They're always searching for a way to communicate with those that have passed on. And so they come up with all this digital equipment now. They have all these new fancy gadgets, right, to communicate allegedly with the dead. And what happens is people fall hook, line, and sinker for that. And, of course, I, myself, Denny Cool, I can't resurrect the dead. I didn't write the scriptures. I didn't create things. So I can't give you a defying resolution and convince anybody of that. I can't, whether it's true or not, right? My belief is my belief. It's my resolute. It doesn't mean that it's what somebody else believes in, because they don't, or I do, or what have you, that they're right, I'm wrong, they're right. My point is what I want to try to point out tonight. And again, share your opinions in the comments, all right? But I want to point out, when you watch these shows, they all, 9.9% of them, will bring in some type of religious person of faith, and they always revert to the Bible, or they'll bring in a cross, or they'll bring in a Bible, or they'll bring in some priest or minister, whatever it is, right? But they always reference the Bible. And I said to myself, the irony of that is so unique, because they profess to, and again, I'm not preaching. This isn't a preaching show. This is a fun, meaningful, let's have a discussion type of show. But they always bring in Bible principles and use God and expel demons, and they do all this stuff in the name of God. Well, let me just put one thing to rest for many, many people. And you don't have to take my word for it, but when they do that, again, the irony is, it's just amazing. they never reference what the scriptures actually say. They use it as a tool, like a smoke and mirrors type of thing, right? It's almost as if it's part of the entertainment. So they're referencing to using God to, in the name of this, that, and the other. But if you researched, and it's not hard to find, I mean, anybody, I don't care what version of the Bible you have, could be the King James, New World Translation, doesn't matter. God is a title, just like a president is a title. If I said, hey, remember that president? Wasn't he a great president? And you said, who? Denny? Who was a great president? Well, you know, the president. Wasn't he awesome? He was the best president we had. And you're like, what? What's his name? President. That's his name is a president. You'd probably look at me like I had 5 heads and say, well, can you give me a name? No, because he's a president. I just thought he was great. Well, that same thing applies to a god. There's many gods. Matter of fact, the Greeks had them. The Romans did, right? They worshipped Zeus, god of thunder, Ares, all these gods. Money, anything that is a form of worship, per se, is considered a god. When you worship or idolize, it's considered a god, just in lowercase. The Bible points out that there is one true God, uppercase. There's only one true. That word is very important because the true comes before God. So I just had to point that out there, that when they do this, and they say this on the TV shows, who are they really referring to? Right? And it always amazes me that when they do this, they, especially when they get into some deep stuff, man. I mean, some of these people. And I have to research it because I have to understand what it is they're doing, why they're doing it, what's their point of doing it, aside from just being crazy. But look, what's their point of doing this stuff? And so I'm watching, and some of these things, now, of course, I don't know what's propped up. I don't know how much is hyped. It's TV, right? It's kind of like now you go search YouTube or whatever it is, you see all these AI things. You can't distinguish now. You see a gorilla fighting with a lion or this king, what's that? A King Crusoe, whatever it is, dog. Very huge dog. I want one, by the way. But massive dog fighting with these pack of wolves. Like, it's all AI stuff, right? So they kind of ruined the realism of things. But point being is that you can't search any of this stuff now. And some things are made up. Some things, because of AI, if not used right, people just ruin it. But when you're watching these reality shows, what stands out to me is when they do this stuff, and they get involved with a lot of the deeper, darker things. Now, all of it, in my opinion, which I'll share with you, is deep and dark. There is nothing good about what they're doing. And I will highlight some of that stuff this evening for you. And again, it's just an opinion show. It's my opinion, my thoughts. Be free to share yours. That's what I love. I love the feedback, right? But when they do this stuff, they get scared, right? Because they're getting into a situation, and they're doing it for entertainment, but at the same time, I've watched behind-the-scene interviews with some of these people. One's a very prominent one. I'm not going to mention names to give anybody credit here or nothing like that, but one's a very prominent show. They started years ago, and they were saying how they've been attacked. They've had certain things happen to them. They've gone back home and all this other stuff. And, it's real, man, what they do. But it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. Parker Brothers came out with a game, allegedly. Well, they call it a game. They still sell it, I think. The Ouija board. Now, that goes back centuries. right? That goes back 7. It's kind of like the pendulum, you know. It's like I forget. Matter of fact, this one here is actually for building, plumb, level, square, plumb. You get a plumb line, okay? But similar to this. And they'll hold that over a board, right? And then the pendulum swings to yes or no, or whatever it is they do. That one's not for that, obviously. You can tell it's a plumb line. But they do that, and then they contact, or they try to contact the spirit realm, the dead, or whatever it is. And I was watching this one documentary where people have literally lost their eyesight. They've gone maimed. This one guy years ago, true story, he thought, because he was a man of strong faith, and so he thought that he could call out and I'm trying to think of the word. He could entice the demons, right? And he could instigate them because he was a man of strong faith. But the Bible warns, do not test God. Don't test him. Meaning, in other words, you don't use your faith to test him, because what's going to happen? Even Jesus did when Satan had tempted him in the mountains and said, but if you jump off this cliff, will God not send you angels to carry you away? And he said, do not put God to the test. And that was the Son of God. So even he denied Satan several times. So my point being is, this man did that. But what he did was, when he tested the demons, it didn't end up well for him. He got rushed. Now, this is a true story. I can actually find the date and stuff in the story for you. I was trying to do it before the show. I just didn't have time. So he put it to the test. He lost. I don't know if he's still alive, but from my understanding, he became a paraplegic. Every muscle in his body was twisted like a pretzel. Not one bone was broken. The doctors were perplexed. They couldn't understand how this happened to the man, because the way his body was contorted, not one bone was broken, fractured, nothing. But he was twisted like a pretzel, like somebody took him like a rag and went like that. But not a bone broken, okay? Now, one can argue and say, well, that could have happened by an accident. Yeah, true. I don't know. I wasn't there. I just know that the story exists. It was factual, and it was told by many who actually witnessed it. But the point being is, believe it or not, that's your choice. But there have been many cases like that when people have done things like that because they feel as if they have the protection of God. And I'm going to tell you that you don't want to do that. It's very stupid. It's very dangerous. And you might find yourself by yourself when you're doing that. Okay? But these people on these TV shows, when they're calling out these things, or they report that they are, I don't know, talking to the dead, this, that, and the other, right? At the end of the day, you got to ask yourself this one question. Hold on, guys. Sometimes I get texts during the show and all that stuff in regards to the show, so let me just check and make sure. Because if it is a listener, I want to make sure that I'm not ignoring them. Let me see. Okay. So these people would do that on these TV shows. And then I'm watching this stuff. And like I said in the opening, their intrigue and their never-ending journey is to find out if or what happens to you after you die. And so I thought I would share my opinions, thoughts, and beliefs with you guys tonight. And I'm going to bring as many facts to the table as I can for you. But again, you decide. It's up to you. It's your opinion. Share your comments, or you can join in live in the chats. It doesn't matter to me. I'll be happy to entertain any ideas you have or thoughts. Again, it's not an argument. It's not a factual thing for me to say, hey, you're wrong, I'm right, or I'm wrong, you're right, okay? I spoke with this guy years ago, and he was talking about he had an experience that kind of scared him a little bit. And I said, well, let me ask you this question. I said, I'm just going to throw it out there. I said, do you think it would seem plausible that when somebody dies, especially somebody, now we all at one point or another lost somebody we love. It could be a friend, family member, what have, even an animal, a pet. I lost Brew, all right, one of my boys, not too long ago. We had to put him down. And to this day, it was only a few months ago, I'm still torn up about it. He was my boy, But would it seem plausible that if you were born to die, then to live in this beautiful spirit world, wouldn't that be the initial start anyways, right? I mean, that's for a whole nother subject, but I just want you to think about that for a second. You go through all this, you get sick or whatever it is, you die, and then all of a sudden now, hey, you're floating around a spirit world. And then after that, you go pay a visit to your aunt and uncle, okay? And you happen to, I don't know, be haunting them one night. And now you're scaring the crap out of your aunt and uncle. But now you have all of these unlimited powers. You can walk through walls. You do this. You do that. Hey there, Judy. Judy in the house. And now you can do all of these things. And yet, your loved ones, you're scaring the crap out of them. Right? And so, to me, I can personally tell you, in my opinion, no, I would not want my dad to try paying me a visit if I believed that. It would be very scary, very freaky, okay? And then what would be the point of even having a life to begin with? It's kind of hypocritical. What would be the point of living and enjoying all the beautiful things we have here on earth just to be turned into beautiful angels after that, if that's what one believes, right? And so that's what these guys try finding out. And then they also have the other belief. There's many, where you go to hell, purgatory, all these things, where they believe that you're kind of lost in, like, it's energy. We all have energy. And when you die, this energy gets left over, right? The energy just goes somewhere in there, but you don't. Hey, John, I just want to say hi. All right, buddy. Well, thank you. But you just have this energy that when you're living, the energy when you die has to dissipate somewhere. It's got to just be in something or be somewhere. And that's one of the arguments a lot of people have is, well, we're all made of energy. So when you die, that energy just, it floats around. I mean, rational argument, I suppose. But then I would ask myself, well, if this energy, kind of like a battery, a car battery, when it dies, where does it go? Does it have an intelligence? Can it think? Can it have a conscience? Does it have emotion? All that stuff, right? Like, where does the energy go? So the energy is just floating around somewhere. And that's another argument that a lot of people have. And again, these are my opinions and beliefs. Everybody's entitled to their own. Doesn't make me right and you wrong. It means, hey, this is Denny sharing his thoughts and opinions with you, and this is an open discussion for fun and meaningful conversations. That's what this show is about. But let's take another look at this, okay? When these people do these shows, and they're doing what they call their ghost hunting and all that stuff, right? And they're always referring to scriptures. They all do. they'll all walk around, they'll all bring in the Bible, or they're all, some person of faith and all that stuff. And then they try to communicate with the dead. The part that cracks me up is they're looking for answers, and if they believed, now this is the key thing. This is where I want to drive this point home. So I really want you to listen to this. The key point to this is, if in fact they believed, now based off of their belief, this is not me saying this is what I see, and this is what they do. Based off of their belief, if they believed in what the scriptures say, therefore they believe in creation, they believe in God, they believe in the devil, all of it. Soup to nuts, okay? Then why wouldn't they simply, if they want to find out what happens to somebody after they die, why wouldn't they simply look in the very place that they're preaching or that they're using as a reference? Very simple. Because if you have a question about that, but you're always referencing back to something, but then again you're questioning the very thing that you're using as a reference, again, the irony is just, it's too real. When you look, again, this all goes to belief. If you don't believe, then there's no point. Again, it's a dead argument. If you have a dead argument with somebody, there's no point in even having it. It doesn't exist. You can express yourself all you want, but if they don't respect you and you don't respect them, there's no point in it, because you're going to have a heated discussion. It's going to end up nowhere. It's not that they have to believe you or you have to believe them, but I think that both have to at least respect each other's opinions and thoughts and beliefs. Doesn't mean you have to align with them. But again, hearing other thoughts, beliefs, and opinions, you may learn something. You might not agree with it, but they may say something to you that you can actually take away and utilize that. And you may learn from it, and vice versa. You may share something with them. So let me give you an instant of this. People say, first let's start here. Do you ever hear that expression, you're going to burn in hell? What do you think that means? Growing up as a kid, I always heard that. You're going to burn in hell. Or bad people go to hell. Or you're in purgatory. Or it's a toss-up between hell and heaven. So if it's a toss-up between hell and heaven, and you're going to burn in hell if I'm a bad guy, well, okay. But is that really the definition of hell? Is a fiery pit? Is it? Because if you're using that as a definite, as a matter of fact, and again, I'm referencing people that use that in terms of what they believe the Bible says, then quoting what they say and what they believe the scriptures say, 100% inaccurate. It is wrong. That's not what the scriptures say. In fact, the original words translated as hell in some even older Bible translations, right? Hebrew, Sheol, Greek, Hades, that refers to the grave. That is the common grave of mankind. It's a Greek and Hebrew translation. So the Bible shows that people in the grave are in the state of non-existence. It doesn't say, there is no reference in any of the scriptures. And one can argue and say that's your opinion. No, it's not my opinion. It's a fact. My opinion would be is I never read the scriptures, so therefore I'm guessing that's what it says. That would be my opinion. But I can tell you I have, and I can tell you that there's nowhere in there that states that. Where when one dies, they're going to go to a fiery pit, have an everlasting burning sensation, and that hell is referring to grave. It doesn't. Hell is the Greek word. It's translated to grave, just as like the cross. That's the Greek translation for stake, torture stake, pole. That's what that means. So when people say that they're in a fiery pit of hell, well, they're in their grave. And again, you can look that up. There's nowhere in the scriptures that it says hell references to, a place down below earth, like volcanic, fiery, and that when you die, you're a bad person, and that's where you go. It does not state that anywhere. So that is a fact. Me basing my belief, it's my opinion on what I believe on what it says. Right? So, well, it does come down to interpretation, but interpretation would be if hell said it's a fiery grave, then one could argue and say, okay, well, in there it's using the term fiery, but it doesn't. It's defined and very well stated that it's the resting place where all men go. From dust you are, to dust you return. So I guess one could interpret that how they wanted, I suppose, but nowhere in there does it say that hell is a fiery grave or a fiery resting place or that you're going to burn in hell. That was actually taken out of context and rewritten over centuries by different religions, right, who changed the context of what the actual Greek scriptures stated. So the irony of that, though, is that when people use that term, they use it so loosely because they don't understand the true definition of it, right? And so, again, remember, we have a different language than what they did years ago. So we don't speak Greek, right? Hebrew, I don't understand Hebrew, but when translated into English, that's exactly what it means. We have scholars for that. I'm not a scholar. You know what I mean? But to John's point, though, is there are many things that you can interpret one way or the other. And I think that comes down to if something isn't black and white, like, for example, if it says the sky is blue, that's it. The sky is blue. Well, if I interpret that to say the sky is midnight blue, or maybe the sky is a fair blue, then one could argue and say, well, it doesn't say that. It clearly states the sky is blue. That's a fact. That's what it states. The same exact thing as I just said. That's exactly what it states. So to interpret it otherwise, in my opinion, I think is misinformation because you're reading it as exactly how it states. But there are certain texts where one can get confused and misinterpret what it actually says. And that's completely understandable. And that's why I said, don't jump or judge to any type of fast decision or conclusion, right? Do your research. John and I talk a lot about different things and stuff. And even though him and I have differences on, several things, the one thing that him and I will always conclude at the end of our conversations, though, is that we both will agree to disagree on certain things, but we both can agree that we can have an open discussion, right? Him and I will have open debates, and at the end, we're still friends because our disagreements don't define our friendship, right? It doesn't separate us. It just separates our opinions, right? And so you can have a separation of an opinion, and that's okay. You should be able to. If I had every opinion and thought and belief that John did and vice versa, then it'd be a pretty boring conversation, wouldn't it? So it's okay to have the differences of opinions, and it's okay to even disagree with somebody. You may disagree with everything that I say tonight. That's fine. I'm not forcing you to agree with me. I'm putting it out there for you to decipher and to come up with your own opinion about what I say. See, what I say is my opinion, my belief. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has to become yours or that I'm trying to force it to become yours. And I think that's the difference, too, where a lot of people lack that. They lack that communication, right? Where they force their opinion, and if it's not, if you don't fall in line, I said it earlier, if you don't fall in line with their opinion, well, then you're wrong. That's kind of narrow-minded, I think. I think that just because you don't agree with somebody doesn't make you wrong. It makes you have an opinion. Yeah. No, John, you're absolutely right. Each person's path is their own, and you have to respect everyone's opinion in return. And John's 100% right. You can. Again, John and I have conversations. Him and I, we'd be on the phone sometimes for 2 hours. And we'd just be talking about things. Had we recorded it, it'd be an epic podcast. Because some of the agreements we had were right in line with each other. Some of the disagreements we had, they were just outright crazy. But again, before we hang up that phone, I respect him at the end of the day. He's still my dear friend. I respect his opinion. I don't have to like it, agree with it, and vice versa. But I respect it, because the one thing I don't think anybody should ever do is you should never fault, blame, belittle, or hold anybody at fault for how they feel. See, when you do that, in essence, what you're saying is, I want you to listen to what I have to say. Nothing else matters but my opinion. And so when you take away somebody's right to have a feeling about something, I think that you're not just robbing them, but more so, I think you're really neglecting yourself when you do that to people, because you're not allowing yourself that opportunity to understand where that person's coming from. Let's just say, for instance, you're at a job and you're trying to sell a product, and you go door to door. And every door you go to, right, they say no, no, no. They don't like your product. Okay. Well, what do? Get mad at them? You call them names? You'll never make a sale. You'll lose your job. No. You go on, and you go on, and you try to sell your product. Some will buy it. Some won't. But it's the same thing with an opinion about something, right? You're kind of a salesperson to your beliefs, to your opinions. But the difference is, you're not trying to sell them a product. You're trying to persuade them in a sense that this is what I believe. Here's my opinion. Here's my thoughts. Hear me out. And then in turn, I want to hear your thoughts and your opinions. And you can go back and forth and have a disagreement. You may never agree. That's fine. And the same thing applies with this whole conversation tonight. I ran into so many people, and I personally will tell you, I've had experiences in my lifetime that have, if I could put it into a movie, a mini film, it would make The Exorcist look like child's play, like real experiences. And I can tell you that there was nothing enjoyable about it. And for some of you out there, you may too have had certain experiences like that. Here's the other thing. Many people have, especially on these shows, because here's the hard thing now. A lot of people, unfortunately, like I said, they don't research, they don't read, they don't look into things. They go to social media, they'll watch TV, which that's fine, but they believe everything. They believe everything that's being pushed upon them. And instead of researching themselves, it's almost as if it's gospel. Whatever is said from wherever their reliable source is, this has to be true. Is it? And for years, we're taught certain things. And as we get older, like I said, when I was a child, I used to believe I could fly until I jumped off the porch and I couldn't fly. Then I realized I wasn't capable of flying. It was a deception. It was a lie. But back then, I thought I could. People are deceived in many, many different ways. Yeah, Dan, there are times like people coming back after dying to tell that they have seen heaven and hell. Yeah, it's funny you say that, Dan, because I'm actually going to touch on that right now. And I died when I was 10 years old. I was in a dirt bike accident. And for those of you that see my beautiful face every Friday night, that's where the scar is from. I was pronounced dead. Now, I don't recall doing anything. I woke up in the hospital. That's all I know. But there's a name for that, scientific name. And Dan, don't ask me to pronounce it or get into it because it's a whole nother. Maybe we'll do a whole podcast about that. But it's a whole conversation within itself, to be perfectly honest with you. And I am not the one. Right now, I don't know enough about it. But there is a scientific explanation, so they say, for that. Okay, again, I don't know enough to even make an argument for it. But here's what I do want to say, though. When these guys are doing these shows, these ghost adventure shows and stuff, right? And it's always funny because, again, a lot of them will have the text right in their hand. And again, I'm referring to, don't misunderstand me, I'm referring to people that walk around with this. And they're referencing this very book right here. And they're walking around with that book. And they're searching for answers to what that book has. But they believe something different than what the book says. But they're hypocritical because they believe in creation, they believe in the devil, they believe in angels, and everything that is convenient for them to believe in. But when it comes to finding what happens with certain things, it's almost like they kind of ignore that. Why is that? I don't know. Maybe it's because they don't fully understand or they haven't read. Some people will read, kind of like a book. They'll do a quick skim and they'll read the first sentence or two sentences of an email or a book, and they kind of forget the rest of it. They skim through it, so they don't pay attention to the rest of it, right? There's always a beginning, a middle, and an end, whether something's written or told. There's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. The dead are unconscious and so cannot feel pain. Neither work, nor reason, nor wisdom, nor knowledge. They are conscious of nothing at all. The living are conscious that they're going to die, but the dead are unconscious. Now you can find that in Ecclesiastes 9:10. That's not me stating that. But again, if one believes in what the scripture says, they believe in creation, they believe in death, they believe in everything else that the scriptures say, then one would lead to believe, why wouldn't you believe what the scriptures say about what happens to you when you die? You can't believe a certain thing out of it and then turn around and say, well, I don't believe what it says about this. Well, then why do you believe what it says about the other parts? That kind of makes not a drop of sense. You either believe or you don't, or you're just using it as a convenience. It's quoted. There's nowhere in the scriptures at all, not one text, not one book, not one sentence, not one line, not one paragraph, nowhere in the scriptures, Hebrew, Greek, Old translation, New Testament, does it say when you die, you become spirit or you become a soul? In fact, it doesn't even reference that. It doesn't say that in there. The Bible does not say that man was or has given a soul. Rather, it says, God proceeded to form the man out of dust and from the ground and blow into his nostrils the breath of life. Thus became a living soul. The soul is in translation, it's the breath of life. That's your soul. Once it's gone, that's it. No more breath, no more soul. It's done. There's nowhere in there where it references that. And the scary part, I would have to say, is that when people dabble in this stuff, no matter what you believe, whether you believe everything that I'm telling you, which I'm not making it up, I'm quoting exactly to you what the scriptures say. So if you believe in creation, if you believe in the scriptures, then you can look those scriptures up and it will state exactly that. There's no disputing that, right? So you either go against it or you believe what it says or you don't. That's up to you. But the scary part about all of that is when these people are communicating what they think they're communicating with, they're not. It's very, very scary as to what they're communicating with. Okay? I can't explain out-of-body experiences. I don't know how to explain that. I can't justify it. I have no explanation for it. I've never experienced it myself. I've heard people make claims of it, and then there's a counter argument to that, which again, I don't have enough knowledge to even argue that fact. So I can't begin to even have a discussion about that because I don't know enough about it to know the pros and the cons, or if there's a scientific term or whatever. So for me to even make an argument for that, I'd be wrong because I don't know enough about it to do that. What I know is exactly what I'm telling you. And again, this is based off of what I read. And if what I read is nothing but a lie, then by definition, that means the entire scriptures are all lies. If that's one's opinion. But if one's opinion and belief is what the scriptures say are true, then everything I just quoted, well, is it a lie? You got to ask yourself that. If one believes in one thing from what the book says, but they don't believe in the other thing from what the book says, then there's kind of a contradiction going on with your brains. Because you can't believe something out of the same book but not believe it out of the same exact book again. It doesn't work like that. It kind of doesn't make any sense to me, even from a common sense standpoint. But here's a scary thing that I will give warning to a lot of people on. Whether you think you're playing a game or you're just having fun or you think it's harmless, I will tell you this, and this I do have experience on because it's happened to me. I will tell you this, that if you think you're playing a game such as using a Ouija board or seances or things of that nature, I will throw a fair warning out there that what you're doing is very dangerous. It could potentially kill you, and that's not over-exaggerating. That is the truth. It could bring you harm, sickness, and not to mention a lot of unslept nights, perhaps, even days. I've lived through it. I experienced it firsthand. I went through it. Thankfully, I'm alive to talk about it, but I can tell you right now that firsthand experience years ago, it was not fun, and it is not harmless. But again, people are going to believe what they want to believe, and people are going to do what they want to do. It's really up to one to kind of make that decision for themselves. I'm sharing my experiences and thoughts and opinions with people to kind of let them, determine, is this something I really want to do or not? The other thing I was talking about earlier was deception, right? There's been cases that have been reported of communication supposedly received, say, from the spirit realm. Well, what really is their origin? And again, this is all if somebody believes in what the scriptures say. The Bible does warn. This is where it gets a little bit on the line for some people. That Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Do you ever hear of that expression, an angel of light? Do you ever wonder where that comes from? Remember what I just told you guys about I experienced it myself? Okay. Years ago, I was given, it was an oil painting. And I should have paid attention to it, but I didn't. I was stupid because I was excited. It was kind of an heirloom, so I thought. But it was an oil painting, and it kind of looked like Shirley Temple from the waist up, just her upper body torso. She was kind of tilted to the side, curly blonde hair, right? And I was very honored to accept this oil painting. It was from somebody who was very dear to me. When I brought it home, I realized that this oil painting was called the Angel of Light. And I didn't put two and two together. I never even thought about it. Hung it up on the wall. And this was the old house before it burnt down. The irony of that was, it was about 2 or 3 months prior before my house burnt down. Coincidence? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I brought the oil painting home. We hung it up on the wall. And at the time when my living room was facing, we had this octagon window there. Hung it up right next to the octagon window. My mom comes over one day. She's visiting. We're taking pictures. She gets home, and she calls me. She says, Denny, she goes, I'm going to send you some pictures. I want you to look at them. I said, okay. I didn't know what she was talking about. She sends them to me. I'm looking at them, and I almost fell off my chair. I said, something's wrong with your camera. It's a glitch. It's a matrix or something. The lens flare or something. I said, that can't be right. Or double exposure. I don't know how that happens on digital, but I don't know. So I take out my digital camera. I took several shots of it. Lo and behold, same thing. Well, what it was, in the octagon window, it was a full-body apparition of this, I don't even know how to describe it, to be honest with you. I think of it to this day, and it still gives me chills, but it was this dark figure, and it just was, the look of it. Picture, if any of you ever seen that movie, The Exorcist. I did when I was a kid. My sister woke my brother and I up to watch it, and I'll never, ever forget that movie. But picture that, but just 10 times worse. In the octagon window, and below that thing was a full-body apparition of that girl in the painting, which was weird because the painting was here on the wall. The octagon window was here in the middle of the wall. And it was only half of her torso. And so I'm staring, and it wasn't glitched because I took several pictures, and they matched up with the ones my mom took. So I cleaned the window. I was still in disbelief. I cleaned the window, and I still at this time didn't put two and two together of that being related to that painting. I just, it didn't click. So I cleaned the window, all that stuff and everything else. I took some more pictures. It was gone. I'm like, all right, there has to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe there was something reflecting it just in that position, a coincidence, my mom, myself, right? So there has to be some type of reasonable explanation. So a couple of days went by. Out of curiosity, I took more pictures, didn't see anything. I kind of let it go, thinking it was just that, a coincidence, reflections, something. I try to prove something before I just go full crazy. So the weeks go on, things just started oddly happening in the house. Cellar door opening, this happening, these things falling, and just started ramping. Things started picking. Dan, the picture, It was done by this artist. I forget his name, but if you look up the painting, oil painting, Angel of Light, it could have been the artist himself. It looked antique, yeah, because the woman that passed, she was like a grandmother to me. She's had it for years, since I can remember. So I don't know technically if it was antique or not, but the angel of light refers to in the scriptures as Satan. He disguises himself as an angel of light, and that's basically what this picture was depicting. But again, I didn't put two and two together. So the weeks go on, and like I said, things just started ramping up in the house, and I'm like, okay, this is crazy. Then it got to the point where I'd sit out in my backyard next to my fire, and I'd be making memos. I had a little iPod thing, right? And I would make voice memos and all that stuff. I play it back, listen to my dictations, and I'd hear voices now talking through the recording I literally just did. Like, responding to me. There's nobody there but me. And so I said, okay, here's where everything went haywire. At that point, I still didn't put two and two together. It started getting worse. And the reason it did is because I did what I always warn people not to do, is I entertained it. And how did I do that? Well, not intentionally, but my curiosity got the better of me. So instead of, doing what most common sense people do, pray, right, what have you, or look for something that caused it or whatever. No, I was taking pictures, trying to debunk, I was encouraging it, but unaware of the fact that I was doing that. And about 2 weeks later, I got depressed. I was angry. I was depressed. I was having nightmares. I was being woken up in my sleep. I was getting scratched. Ask my wife. She'll tell you. I was waking up, and it was bad. Like, I'd have my eyes wide open seeing these things. And so it clicked on me, and I looked it up, and lo and behold, we took the painting, we lit a fire, we threw it in the fire pit, and supposedly oil goes right up. The painting took about 40, 45 minutes to burn. There's an oil painting. It wouldn't burn. Now, again, whether that was related to the artist himself, or I hope not, but from the woman who I loved dearly, I don't know. I have no answer for that. I can't explain that. But my point is, I experienced it. And that was as harmless as something as that. And I seen it, I experienced it, and I'll tell you what, it is nothing to mess around with. Nothing. And then about a week or two after that is when the house burned down. So we were very, very fortunate to have escaped all of that stuff that was going on. And the weird thing about that stuff, Dan, is that when you watch or you hear these stories about people becoming depressed and just, getting angry, right, for no reason, because it could be demonic in nature, whatever it is. That's no joke. It would feel as if, like, everything in my house was heavy, right? Like, it was just a constant tension. My wife and I, we were constantly arguing. And when you think about what you were arguing about and you look back at it, nothing. No reason. I was just snapping, flying off the handle. Not in a physical way, but I felt that, like, I could. I never did. But I got so depressed, and I secluded myself. I became withdrawn. I wasn't me anymore. It was awful. Awful. So that's why I say, I just warn against, even if you think it's harmless, if you think it's fun and entertaining, and you're influenced by these shows and you're going out ghost hunting, whatever, do your homework, and if you do believe in the scripts, the scriptures, and you believe in the Bible, and again, I'm not preaching, I'm sharing some opinions with you, that if you do believe, then read it entirely. Don't read half-heartedly, whatever it is, and just walk away from it. You've got to understand what it is that you're reading, and you've got to understand what it is that you're getting involved in. It's just funny, though, how we grow up in society where things change all the time. What maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago was considered, risque or warning, like danger, danger. Today, it's considered normal. It's considered, it's okay. It's whatever. People shrug it off. They don't give it much thought. Yeah, Dan, antiques and stuff like that, they are prone to it. You said you did experience antique statues walk at the middle of the night when I was young. I can believe that. And that's one of the things too, Dan, where a lot of people get lured into that. They get lured into the curiosity end of it, because it's not their fault. They're not taught. They're not shown. And if you're doing something that you're unfamiliar with, then how are you supposed to be aware of the consequences to it, right? You may think it's innocent. And of course, I just gave an experience. As innocent as that painting may have seemed, it definitely was not innocent. And again, it comes down to one's belief. But for these particular shows and entertainment things that I was talking about, okay, they all quote scriptures. They all quote in reference of saying God and everything else. But if they're looking for these answers as to what happens to somebody when they die, then they can simply read the scriptures. There's their answer right there. It tells them in black and white throughout the entire Bible. And it doesn't contradict itself. There's nowhere in there that says you don't. It clearly says what happens to you. You have no conscience. The dead know nothing, hear nothing. They are in a state of unconsciousness. They cannot hear you nor see you. They have no will. They have no feeling, no emotion. Clearly states that. There's nothing left to interpret out of that aside from exactly what it says. If it was worded differently, then yeah, I could definitely understand people getting confused about that. But I think the confusion comes in is where they don't read it, and then they believe everything that they're told. And again, it doesn't mean that you have to take my word for it, because it's not my words. I'm quoting to you something that I read, and if that's wrong, well, then I guess that's one's opinion as well, right? But see, a lot of things out there are full of deception, and that's the scary thing. And that's why I always say, in my opinion, that it's always good to have a discussion with somebody, like what John was saying earlier. You can have a difference of an opinion, and sometimes you may find out that what you thought to be true, or what you were told, or what you believed in, it may not be. And somebody else may say it, right? And you don't believe, or you're not listening. And maybe it takes 5 different people to say it, but in a different way. And on the 5th time, you actually understand, because that person you're talking to made more sense than the first 4 people. So I always think it's important just to even listen to somebody's argument. And again, even if you don't believe what they're saying, you don't have to. But they may say something that has relevance to it. And that may help you. I mean, it may not, but it just may. And for the longest time, I did. I believed that for the longest time, But for all of those out there that do, and that are in the ghost adventures world, Be careful, do your homework, and if you believe in what the text and the scriptures say, then you've got to read it, because your answer is right there. And you can say, I'm a liar, that's fine. I'm not quoting it. It's not out of my mouth. Well, it's coming out of my mouth, but I'm not reading something that I wrote. And you can, I suppose, to John's point, if it says the dead are conscious are nothing at all, you can interpret that any way you want, I suppose. I interpret it as if they have no conscience. I don't know how else to interpret that other than what that says. But to John's point, though, people will interpret things the way they want to interpret it. And sometimes I find that people will interpret things because they don't want to believe something that can be true. They want to believe something that they want to be true. Do you guys ever find that to happen to you? When you're talking to somebody, you could literally show them proof of something. Okay? My brother, for example, maybe he's watching. I don't know. I showed him proof of something. For example, we're going to have a contest coming up on our Friday show, okay? And that has to do with songs, writing songs and all that. Anyways, I've written a few, as many of you know, over the course of time. Both John and I have, and several others. And I was trying to explain to him. He tried telling me that I don't own the rights to that song. He says, AI owns it. I said, well, no, AI composed the music. I don't have a full set studio to do that. I said, but AI composed the music for it. I wrote it. I put all the work into it. I separated, the bridge, the bars, the chorus, the breaks, all that. I said, I wrote it. I composed it. I just can't make the music to it. So I printed off the license agreement showing that I, in fact, own it. It's in my name, my license to market, to distribute, to use, to share, whatever. And he still insisted that I don't own it, that AI owns it. And I don't know who AI is. I know AI is a tool. I don't know AI was a person, that AI can actually own it. But that's my point, is I showed him proof that I own it, copyright, my name. And he still insisted that I was wrong. So sometimes you're going to run into people like that no matter what you do, you're wrong. And you can show them proof, right? But you're still wrong. It's because they don't want to believe what you're telling them is other than what they believe it to be. And unfortunately, sometimes when you run across that, it's one of those, again, like I said, it's really a dead conversation. And you know what is strikingly funny, too? Is that if things were so cut and dry and so simple, right? If everything was the way it was written, or the way things are written, then I think people would kind of look at things different. And what I mean by that is, if you could look at good and see good for good, then you would believe it's good. But what if you could look at evil and see evil for evil without the deception and cloak of good? 9 out of 10, people would see evil for evil. They'd stay away from it. They wouldn't go near it. They wouldn't dabble in it, right? See, that's the difference. That deception right there, that disguise, you ever hear that wolf in sheep's clothing? Where do you think that comes from? It's deception. So a person, he could be a person who harms somebody, does harm to another. They're nice on the outside, right? But they're wolf in sheep's clothing. And that's exactly what these things do, these demonic entities. They masquerade around pretending to be angels of good, decent things. And matter of fact, these shows, some of them will even go to the length of where they even say that some of these things will pose themselves as little kid spirits, right? to trap and lure people into believing they're little kids or whatever it is, and then coming to find out they're not. Again, is what it is. But if you were able to see something for its true form, its true self, right? Wouldn't that be so much easier to do that? Rather than going through all of these hoops, and you can just say, yep, I seen that, I'm not going near it. Or, yep, I seen that, hey, that's awesome, I love that. Dan, you are 100% right. He is the master of deception. As a matter of fact, the Bible refers to him as the father of lies. Because he does masquerade as an angel of light. Now, you can find that in 2 Corinthians 11, 14, and 15. Again, I'm not stating this from my head. Well, I technically am, but I'm quoting it. And again, it's not a preaching course. It's not to get somebody to believe any way or the other. I'm having an open discussion, and I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear what you believe. I want to hear your opinions on it. But this goes back centuries. Matter of fact, the Apostle Paul gives further warning, right? When he talks about, he said, warning of this campaign of deception. Some will fall away from faith, right? And he goes on to say that they'll pay attention to misleading, inspired utterances and teachings of demons. Think about that for a second, right? To put it in layman's terms, basically, it's kind of like growing up as a kid. Your parents try to teach you right from wrong, right? So they discipline you in a way that they're teaching you how to be a good man, be a good woman, right? How to be honest, how to do the right things, be respectful, be kind, be courteous, be considerate, all those wonderful things that every parent wants their child to grow up and become. But somewhere along the line, as they get older, they meet somebody else. Somebody new comes into their life. And kind of, I don't know, what your parents are saying to you, it's a lie. What they're teaching you, you don't have to live like that. They're lying to you. They just want to control you. They want you under their thumb. Don't listen to them. You can do what you want, and people will still love you. You'll still be respected. You'll still be a good person. Trust me. But they do it in a way that's so cunning, that's so believable, right? They get your trust. They earn your trust. They don't do it right off the bat to show who they really are. Manipulative, lying, deceitful scumbag that they are. No. They hide that, right? They cloak themselves with this falsehood of goodness. And they slowly stray you away from your parents. They slowly stray you away from what you were brought up to do. Be kind, be respectful, all the other good qualities of what humans are capable of being. And that person strays you away from that. Now you become desolate from them. You kind of forgot what you were taught. It's still embedded in you, but you kind of go your own way now because in your mind there's nothing harmful about what this person says to you. But it's not till later on that everything that person told you was a lie. That's the same exact thing that happens. We're taught certain things throughout life. Now, some are taught differently than others, but for the most part, we were raised to respect our elders, be kind, be considerate, have manners, work hard, all those proper things, right? Just the basics, being a good person. And somewhere along the line, some people kind of get off that and they kind of stray, right? They kind of fall into that category of, I'm a rebel type of person because it's okay, But that's where you got to be careful. And that's what happens to what Dan says. He is the master of deception. What you think is okay, what you think is good, what you think is decent, what you think may be moral, it may not be. It may not be as innocent as one thinks. And that's the whole point of it, is that it's up to you to come up with your own opinion, your own thoughts, your own views as to what I said tonight to be the truth in your eyes, or everything I'm saying to you, again, is just, It's horse manure. And again, that's okay too. Again, I'm not here to preach down to you or to talk down to you or lay out facts for anybody to say, hey, Denny's right. Nah, I'm having some fun discussions, and I love this input from everybody. And I'm sure there'll be more comments and everything else. I've actually gotten some pretty nice texts on my phone from people that I never even knew were watching my podcast, believe it or not. I'm relatively new to doing the podcast. Unlike the Friday shows, we're all kind of accustomed to that. It's our thing. And this is kind of my side gig that I enjoy doing because I'm sharing a part of me with everybody that you guys don't get to see on Friday nights. There's only one of me, but we all have different traits, I think, that we like to explore. And on the side, late at night, I enjoy painting. I enjoy doing crafts with my wife, all that fun stuff. So there's that creative side. And this is part of that creativity that I enjoy. I enjoy talking with people. I love hearing opinions. And I love having fun debates. Not argumentative, not hateful debates. Like I said, John and I, we have them all the time, man. Sometimes we spend hours on the phone, And the benefit from us doing that, though, was whether we both walked away agreeing or whatever it was, is we always felt good about it because whatever he was spewing off his chest, whatever I was spewing off my chest, we felt good just to get it out of our system. And guess what? Not once did him or I get mad at each other or hang up on each other or not like each other. If anything, it only built our bond. It strengthened our relationship with each other because you build that trust where you can do that with somebody, have a difference of opinions, and it strengthens that unity that you have with that person, right? That's kind of like the Friday night shows. When you guys send in your songs and you sing and you comment and you chat live and all that stuff, what you're doing, whether you realize it or not, is you're building that strength, that trust, and that unity with all of everybody else that takes part in the show. Whether you realize it or not, you are. Because every time somebody comments, watches you, and listens to you sing, they're building up that relationship with you. Okay? It may not be as stark as having an actual conversation, but you're still doing it. Right? And that's why the community that we have is so, so strong. Because you guys support each other. And even though you may not agree with each other, you don't have to. Because if you did, you'd all be singing the same type of songs. See the difference? Even when it comes to music and likes of music, that's a disagreement. So why aren't people arguing about that? Why isn't somebody throwing a temper tantrum saying, well, he or she isn't singing this style of music? Because he or she doesn't like that style of music. They disagree with it. Okay. Sing your own style. That's fine. See how that works? If you can do it in music, then you can do it in discussion. I 100% firmly believe that. Now, whether that's possible in the here and now, we don't know. But I don't know if I'd ever find that out, though, to be perfectly honest with you. You want to hear a story? I do. Listen to this. Dark clouds gather, thunder rumbles. Heavy drops of rain come pelting down. Inside a small home, a family of 7 persons is gathered, and the members are hoping that their dead ancestors will protect them. Suddenly, with a frightful crash, lightning strikes and the home catches fire. Only 2 in the family survive. These 2 are now afraid of staying in the same village as they believe that it has been bewitched and that some wizard is trying to wipe out the whole family. Now, that report appeared in the Times of Switzerland, January 28, 1977. This family may well have known that lightning is caused by electricity forming in the clouds. But you see how their belief was structured? You see how that kind of distorted that view a little bit? But the report shows that they also believe that an enemy can get invisible spirits to direct lightning toward a certain place And they believed that dead ancestors can give needed protection. So you get two parts there. Right? Now, that's a true story. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, that's just crazy. To you, yeah, sure. It may seem outlandish. It may seem crazy. And everything I just said to you earlier on may seem foolish, may seem crazy. That's my point. To these people, to this family, they were brought up with that belief. So to them, it's not crazy. That's what they believed. But to contrast that, they also believed that their dead loved ones could protect them and save them. Well, if that was the case, then I guess that kind of contradicts of them being able to do that, because guess what? Several died, right? So my point is no matter how far-fetched people believe with different types of religions or, their backgrounds, right? It's a deception for the most part. Whether it's to them, whether it's what they were taught, a lot of it is deception. And that means that unless somebody themselves knows for an actual fact, right? Meaning, in other words, if they went and researched and studied and figured out that what they believe is either true or not true, then how would they know? It's kind of like the same thing when you're watching a certain program or you're on social media. It's deception unless you can absolutely prove it. I always tell people when they're watching the news and stuff, I'm like, we are only told what they want us to hear. So people argue, they get in fights over different politicians, different media outlets, whatever it is. You're really arguing over nothing, because you don't know for a fact. You're only basing your argument off of what you're told. And what you're told may not be the entirety of what's actually going on. So why waste your breath? Why fight over something that you really don't know anything about? And it's not important anyways. If it's that important, it will find you. You'll hear about it. So this poor family, and the reason why I say that is because later on they go on to explain that they realized that what they believed and did, it was basically a lie, right? But there's many cultures throughout the land that believe that. I was watching this movie. I wrote this down too. And to Dan's point, you guys ever watch that movie? It's an older movie. It's called Troy. What I found intriguing about Troy was, so the Greeks, as many of you know from reading history, the Greeks were very advanced for their age, right? They had technology, and the way they built things was far superior than any other civilization. Maybe the Mayans probably superseded them. The Mayans were very super intelligent. They just had stuff that was way beyond. And yeah, I know what you're going to say. Aliens. But again, guys, that's not the subject right now. But what the Greeks did to topple the city of Troy, okay, was they deceived them. They became sort of like the angel of light, Satan, master of deception. After their first major war on the beach, kind of like the beach of Normandy, right? That's kind of what reminded me of reading history. But after they all said, okay, we're going to part ways right here. Let's call it truce. The prince ended up killing Achilles' nephew, okay? So he wanted revenge. So what did the Greeks do? They said, well, we can't penetrate their wall. We can't get through that because they're guys behind the walls and the barricades, the archers were just so accurate, right, that they would kill them before they even attempted to breach the wall. The thing was like 100 feet tall to begin with. What'd they do? They built this Trojan horse. Now, back then, they believed and worshipped the Greek gods of lightning, of thunder, and wind, and rain, and whatever it was. So they built this wooden horse, hence the Trojan horse. And then a bunch of soldiers hid inside. They waited till nightfall. Once they were inside the castle's gates, the city gates, they then came out of the horse, opened the main gates, and then all of the soldiers came in and destroyed Troy, burnt it to its ground. So they deceived them. It was a kind thing. And the king himself even said, no, this is a gift. We can't refuse it. See? So it only proves, guys, that, and I got that from just watching the movie. I think that was pretty cool. But even the king himself accepted it as a gift. So that's why you've got to be careful. And when it comes to things of that nature, right, such as spiritism, Bible warns against that. Of all the countless books written, okay, the Bible reaches the furthest back in human history than any other ancient writings. That's probably being written more than by some 40 men, starting with Moses. That was almost, 3,500 years ago in 1513 BCE. There's collective 66 books written in the Bible. Thousands of millions of copies completed, so on and so forth, okay? But the relevancy of that is that it's stayed true for thousands and thousands of years, okay? And everything in it, again, when it comes down to what one believes or what one doesn't believe, it's all up to the individual. But when it comes to the spiritism, when it comes to life after death, when it comes to trying to find out if you can communicate with the dead, the best thing I can say is, like I said, it's my opinion, my belief. It doesn't have to be yours. I'm sharing it with you, okay? Is that, read the scriptures. It's not that you're getting religious or gospel-y, as some would say it, right? But you look up Psalms 146, 3 and 4, right? Where it says that the dead cannot say anything. They do not feel anything. Do not put your trust in nobles or son of earthling man. So it talks about all that stuff. It doesn't, nowhere in the scriptures does it state that when somebody dies, they come back and that they're in a spirit form or that their soul goes on. It doesn't state that. And again, this is what I wanted to share. And the reason I wanted to do a podcast about this is I found it interesting because I was actually talking to a couple people during the week, actually over the weekend, who were talking about this stuff, and they happened to bring it up. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do a little episode about this. Nothing big, but just going to kind of throw it out there. And then I'm going to share some experiences that I had with everybody. And to Dan's point, when he says that he experienced that happening, I know a lot of people who have experienced different things like that, Dan. Now, may not be statues, all right, but they literally have seen things, walking and just stuff, or they take pictures of something, whatever, that they just can't explain. And of course, some, or almost all, would always reference it to somebody died there, or it's this, that, and the other, And so I had a couple of conversations like that over the weekend, just in general talk, And I kind of redirected them to everything I was literally just telling you guys out here tonight. And it wasn't, again, to persuade anybody. It's just kind of say, listen, here's the information I have. Here's what I believe. Here's my opinion. You can go look for yourself and, kind of make up your own mind. Decide for yourself, if you choose to believe that or not. That's entirely up to you. But here, let me share this with you. I haven't heard from them, I don't know, but I always think that it's fun to share stuff. I always think that it's fun to talk about different things. I wanted to do an episode one time about, weird cryptics and stuff. Cryptids, what do they call them? Cryptids, yeah. But I didn't really know how to do that because I can't really explain away a lot of. The hard thing is for me trying to do stuff like that right, is that with TV and, you know, YouTubes and all that stuff and everything else like that, it's hard to try and do even a fun episode about that, because everything I've searched for to try to find facts, it's tough, because the things that I have found don't really have definitive proof of anything. The other stuff I find, it's bombarded with different things, and it's fake. It's made, they call it clickbait, I think, but it's made to attract people to go to that certain site or that channel, whatever it is, and believe what it is. But nothing that I read from those sites, right, are really backed up from actual, say, it could be colleges or I like independent research studies, like independent colleges, ones that don't get funding, they're self-funded. I like that type of research, because they're not relying upon anyone or anything for the research or funding, right? They're independent. So their research, not that it always is, but in my opinion, I find their research to be more credible than that, say, by some government-funded site or state, whatever it is. And I've researched and I've compared the two side by sides. But that's just me, right? So I couldn't find anything to really show anything to say, okay, that's weird. Now, I myself have seen some weird stuff that I can't explain. I don't know. Like, I'll give you an example. We're supposed to be able to see the aurora lights tonight from 10 p.m. till 2 in the morning. Now, I've never seen them, and we've been able to see them in my area 3 or 4 times. I've never ever seen them, like, live, like going outside and seeing them. So I would love to see that. Now, for me, that would be something that'd be like a phenomenal, like paranormal thing, because I've never witnessed it. It'd be the first time I've seen it. I know there's a scientific reason as to why it does that. It has to do with temperature, atmospheric change, and all that stuff. Don't ask me. I don't know. I can't explain it to you. But I think that would be cool, right, to talk about stuff like that. But then people get bored with that stuff. They're more interested in the stuff I just talked about, but they're more interested in actually doing it and getting involved in it and finding out things and doing all those fun adventures, I guess, to them. But, yeah, I like that, Dan. I like that statement. Let me see. Yeah, John, I know I said it earlier, but I will research that. I would like to read just for what people say about that, for what a while back I did touch up on a little bit of that, but not too much. I just didn't find it, I don't know, that overwhelming with people having out-of-body experiences or anything of that nature. I didn't find it to be something of interest to me, so I don't know how that even plays really into. I know that there is a scientific understanding to that from what I read. I can't say it definitively, but I do know that they have studied that. And from what I understood, from what little I took out of that, was that it has to do with the mind and how it's perceiving the environment, or how it tricks your brain into thinking something is real, but it's not. It's like hallucination, I guess. That's one way to put it. But again, I don't know enough about it to even have even a fun discussion about it. I'd love to have a fun discussion about that. I don't know. That would, but imagine that. Let's just imagine for a second. I don't know how that would work. even if it was possible. That's just my opinion. I don't see that even being a plausible thing. But then again, I don't know. I know a lot, John, but I don't really know that. I would like to think so. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, look at that time. It is 9:15. Almost time for me to wrap it up. I was going to add some more things to this, but you know what? I think what I said, in my opinion, is really, really cool. And I think that it brings, I hope that you can go back and listen and really look that stuff up. Read it for yourselves. Again, don't take my word for it. Don't take me as I'm trying to matter of fact you or preaching to you. I'm not by any means, guys. I'm really, really not. I'm sharing some fun opinions, some fun beliefs with you guys, right? And I just think it's worth entertaining, for those out there who hopefully don't dabble in the spirit realm. Just be careful. Don't do that. That's my opinion. And again, my experience. I didn't dabble in it, but unknowingly, I guess I kind of did. And I'll tell you what, I'll never do that again. Another good one, the reference though here is the Bible reveals that in the spirit realm, there are, besides the Creator, millions of other spirit persons who are known as angels. And you can even read that. It's all about angels. Daniel 7:9 through 10. You get Revelations 5 and 11. It's all there. You can read that stuff, right? And decide for yourself. And take your time. Read it. See what it says. Give it a try. You never know. It's not going to hurt you, right? You may learn something new. You may not. You may be entertained. You may not. You may be intrigued. You may not. Either way, I just want to enlighten people if I can on what I think. And again, I thank those who were in here for sharing that. John, Dan, guys, thank you very, very much. Guys, don't forget to. This Friday, I think, let me see. We got it somewheres. Yeah. I don't know what I did with it, but it's floating around somewhere. Anyways, this Friday, oh, no, that's my daughter's wedding invitation. Look at that. This Friday is Canadian night. I'll close it up with this. It's Canadian night. Now, I know right now, I think we're pretty much full. That filled up quick as far as the features go. So we got a full lineup, and that includes, I believe, members' request for this Friday night's entertainment, the live event. This is going to be fun. I think this is the first time we've done the Canucky night, right? Yeah, we're going to give the Canadians a chance to prove that they actually have entertainment that's worth listening to. I like busting their chops like that. They love it. I said that to them. I said, well, if we do a Canadian theme night, is there enough talented entertainers out there? Like, do you guys have enough? I know Australia doesn't. There's like one or two, and they all have to kind of migrate over to America or wherever to make anything out of themselves. They really can't do it in Australia, so they got to vamoose and go to the good old USA, I suppose. But all kidding aside, yeah, this Friday night show will be starting at, I think, 7 to 7:30. You guys will get the email and stuff Thursday night, the members, that is, all right? So don't forget, tune in. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, do so. Don't forget to like, hit the thumbs up, and comment on the shows that you watch, especially the Friday nights. It's very important to us. Show your support, not only for the show, but for the other members. All right. There you go, Judy. Oh, you're still awake. Good for you. What a trooper. Well, Judy, I hope that I instilled some fun facts for everybody tonight, and that maybe you can walk away with a little something different, a little different thought than what you had before you came on. And hopefully it was fun, entertaining. My next podcast, though, is going to be much, much different. Going to touch on a little bit of what I said tonight, but it's going to be based around communication. Something that everybody out there knows I love to do. But this is going to be a little more in depth, and I'll show you this book. Okay, this is actually the college edition. I'll show it to you just in case you guys don't believe me. Okay. Yes, I read stuff like that. I've read it, but I'm going to dive into group communication, all that stuff, and everything else. All right. So, with that being said, guys, don't forget this Friday night. I will send out everybody the emails tomorrow night. And for now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to Stumble In with Denny Cool. I appreciate you, loves you all, and I will see you guys Friday night. For now, have an awesome night, guys. Be kind, take care.